Hi, I'm acoustic guitar contributing editor Sean McGowan. In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the standard American drum rudiments and applying some of these rudiments to guitar playing. These rudiments actually make excellent exercises for both the fretting and picking hands. And I found over the years that many of my drummer friends are extremely disciplined when it comes to practicing just basic rudiments on the snare in order to facilitate their playing in general, regardless of style. What we're going to do is isolate a few of these groupings of rudiments, including the roll rudiments, the diddle rudiments, and also the flams, and get a great workout for both the picking and fretting hands. Just a quick note before we work through these exercises, you can actually hear all of these rudiments being demonstrated by a drummer on the Percussive Arts Society website, which is pas.org, pas.org, and each of these rudiments is performed on a snare drum. The first of the rudiments is a single stroke roll, which is essentially just alternate picking on the guitar string. That's how we will apply it. So before we actually start with the exercise, you may want to just try each of these rudiments with a simple open string pattern to get the idea. On the pas.org website, you'll hear the drummer perform a single stroke roll, and they'll gradually increase the roll cleanly and effortlessly, but without necessarily using any kind of tempo in the form of a metronome. So what you can do is approximate that by just using alternate picking on an open string. So start out very slow. And gradually work your way up in tempo. And so on. Okay, here's example 1, the single stroke roll. We're going to do this with the metronome with quarter notes at 80 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3 E and 4 E and. Okay, here's example 2, a variation on the single stroke roll, just using different pitches, all with alternate picking and crossing strings. Here we go with the metronome at 80. 1, 2, ready, and. Okay, the next rudiment that we're going to work through is called the single stroke 4. What this rhythm essentially is a triplet, a quick triplet followed by an eighth note. So a quick 16th triplet pattern followed by an eighth note. So it almost sounds like a horse galloping. Okay, here's example 3, the single stroke 4. The metronome still at 80. 1, 2, ready, and. Here's example 3 again, but this time with the metronome at 110. It's nice to practice the single stroke 4x rudiments a little quicker because they're a great way to really improve your speed burst using alternate picking. So here we go, example 3 with the metronome set at quarter note equals 110. 1, 2, 3, and. The third rudiment that we're going to look at is basically an extension of the single stroke 4. It's called the single stroke 7. And what this is are 2 triplets or a sextuplet pattern followed by a quarter note, which so it's essentially 3 and 4 and. And what's nice about this is that you have essentially a speed burst followed by a rest, which gives your hand a chance to regroup before the next speed burst, which is much more accurate in playing real music as opposed to an exercise. Okay, here's example 4, the single stroke 7. The metronome is set at 80. 1, 2, 3, and. example 4 again with the metronome set at 110. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay, now we're in week 2 of our rudiments, and this week we're going to be taking a look at the diddle rudiments. The first and definitely the most common diddle rudiment is called the paradiddle, specifically the single paradiddle. And I encourage you to try these just maybe tapping on a table or even on your leg just to get an idea of how drummers practice. But what this paradiddle is a constant string of 16th notes, but with variations with the left and right, between the left and right hands. So essentially what it is left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, and so on. And we can approximate this using our pick strokes, or by changing the note around with our fretting hand. So in the first example, we're actually going to be changing between 2 adjacent strings and also string skipping, and we're going to follow this particular paradiddle pattern with the notes in our riff. Okay, here's example 5, the single paradiddle. Here the metronome is at 80. 1, 2, 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, here's example 6. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a 4 and. Okay, here's example 7. This is almost the same as example 6, but now we're going to move around a little bit with the bass note of each chord, changing strings between the D and the low E strings. And because that's a little more difficult, I think it's important to start out at a slower and maybe more comfortable tempo. So here is the quarter note at 60. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, here's example 8, the double paradiddle. You'll notice that the example written actually is a series of double stops played in sextuplet rhythms. It might be a good idea to just take maybe the bottom note and practice the single notes. So I'm going to do both for you right now. Here is example 8, just the lower notes of the example with the quarter note at 60. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4 E and a. And then with the double stops as listed in the example, 2, 3, and 4, and.